back on the podcast with Mr. Keith Andrews, who is the managing broker owner of Alpha Zulu Realty. And Keith, after the Army, he entered the high-tech sector and climbed the corporate ladder. He discovered the BRRRR method, which allowed him to start building a portfolio of rental property in Colorado Springs. He left the rat race. He focused on real estate investing full-time. And now we're back to get caught up to find out what he is all about as far as working in property management. And he is just a beast when it comes to these mindset and success principles. Amazing guy. He's full of energy. I'm always thinking, like, can I just keep up with Mr. Keith? Well, we'll find out. Mr. Keith, glad to see you again.
Hey, man, it's great to be here.
Wonderful. And so tell me what you're up to. Like, what's your current focus and passion besides living life in real estate and just being an awesome dude?
Well, as you know, I got out of the rat race a few years back. Was able to do it because of real estate. I had enough cash flow coming in every month from my rental portfolio to justify leaving the 9 to 5 and really getting my time back with family and just for myself. And then I got bored. And I wanted to do something while the kid is at school and I'm just fiddling my thumbs. I thought, you know what? So the first thing I did was I started a podcast, and I really went hot and heavy on that for a while. And then I had a client actually come to me and say, dude, why don't we start a property management company? Because I know there's a lot of property owners that are out here that are struggling, and we can also help people buy and sell real estate as well. And so I already had my real estate license. I was really just using it for myself. And we partnered up. We started Alpha Zulu Realty at the end of last year. And we've been just building up our portfolio of properties that we're managing for other people now. So first step we did was we brought in our own properties, started managing those under the company, kind of getting all the loose ends tied up. And then we started bringing on property owners.
And there's a lot of good lessons there already, right? This idea of being your first client. And it's always, you say, oh, well, how do I get the bugs, the kinks worked out? How do I solve like the 1,000+ problems when it comes with building a business? Well, hey, I'll be the person that I'll be the client that gets things run for up front. And then I'll be able to have all these, I'll know who my people are. I'll know my processes.
Right.
I'll know what I want to talk about. And it also seems like I'm completely a lay person when it comes to real estate here, Mr. Keith. And like but we all know people who like have investment properties and stuff like that. You hear so many bad things about property management, right? You hear that they hide and they're lazy and they don't know what they're doing. And so there's also something to be said about someone like you who is a people person, who is a podcaster, who kind of does the publicity. And if someone in that Colorado Springs area is saying, I've wanted to do real estate, want to do investing, but I don't want to build myself a job, right? I don't want to be the one painting the fences, unclogging the toilets. I want a property management company to do things. Who do I go to? Man, there you are right there having these conversations, being in front of the people that need you. And so tell me what it's been like these last few months building up this Alpha Zulu property management company.
Well, it's been definitely a fun and tiring journey at the same time, but it's definitely been well worth it. I mean, one of the problems I see with a lot of property management companies that are out there is they don't think like owners, right? So we really built this company up for ourselves first, right? Because we said if we're going to be a property management company, we want to be the best in the city, right? We want to think like owners. We want to, when we take on a property, we want to treat it like we would treat one of our own properties. And we just heard horror stories from other, people that were out there that were either self-managing, right, and dealing with that struggle of like, what contractor do I call? I'm getting ripped off, every time I have a tenant issue that pops up. Maybe they have trouble securing good tenants. And if they're dealing with a property manager, maybe they have long vacancies in between tenants and these types of struggles. And that's something that, like, over the last 5-6 years, I've really ironed out here in the Springs. I've built a solid network of contractors. I know the best plumbers and I know the worst plumbers, right? So I know who to call when there's a problem. I also have figured out ways to minimize vacancies and to do things proactively to keep my investments um, profitable, right? So now I'm passing all that knowledge and all that know-how onto the properties that we're managing. So that's how we're different from the rest of the industry because again, we are, we like you said in the very beginning, we ate our own dog food, right? We got everything working perfectly for our own properties, so now we can manage other people's properties.
Very nice and very exciting. And there's something to be said about in your answer here about like being obsessive about your clients' fears and frustrations, and like thinking about that all the time, and really digging in and saying like, how can we do better than everyone else who either isn't aware of the fears and the frustrations, or maybe they know they're there, but they don't really like work on it daily, obsessively in the way that you might, like the keeping the vacancies away or keeping the tenants happy. And so there's always a million things to do, right? A million like people to have involved in all these plans and all these things to stay away from and aware of. But as far as just where you see property management companies go wrong, right? You listed all these different things, but like, is there one or two in particular that really grind your gears? Is there something that would just be life would be so much easier if property management companies like did this one thing or didn't do that one thing?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, like one of the biggest problems, especially when we're taking on a new property that maybe it was managed by another property management company, we talk to the tenants that are in there and we're like, hey, when's the last time, the property manager walked through this property or like how long does it take for maintenance requests to get filled and these types of things. And we've like you would be just blown away with how badly managed a lot of these properties that have been managed by these, big house property management companies where the air filter and the HVAC hadn't been changed for years, right? There's leaks that the tenants called about and said, "Hey, the ceiling's turning a little brown. Is this a problem?" And it's like a slow plumbing leak or something that was never addressed. Which, as you know, when you don't tackle these problems right away, they get a lot more expensive. So the best thing you can do as a property manager is to have regular visits to the properties, not just the outside, but make it a point. Like you have to go in there once a year to blow out the sprinklers here in Colorado Springs, right? That's a great opportunity to go inside. Usually the plumbing is all coming in through the basement to get inside, look at that air filter. We personally every quarter and we have it written in our leases every quarter we're going to come through and just make sure that all your major appliances are working, right? We want to make sure that water heater is in good shape, it's not slowly leaking. We want to make sure that a lot of times the air conditioner lines will get clogged, which can cause um, in some cases water damage, right, wherever they're located. There's all kinds of little things we can look for, and so that's one of the things that we do different. So we can see a problem before it starts, right, or we can get to a small problem before it turns into a big problem. So being proactive, walking through your properties is so important, right? And most of these property managers, they don't do that. They just rent it out and they don't look at it until there's a tenant turnover, and then when there's a tenant turnover, they're billing the property owner, thousands of dollars to get all these things fixed that they could have taken care of while the tenant was there, right? And it would have been a lot less expensive.
That is a simple and doable principle, and it applies to like life in general, right? You think about, well, any kind of relationship you have, relationship with your parents, with your kids, with your spouse, you check in regularly, right? If your spouse didn't
Exactly.
see you for a month or two, unless you were deployed, there'd be a problem. And even if you were deployed, you'd still communicate in the meantime. And so you have this relationship with your tenants. It makes sense to do that. And everybody wins, right? Because you're saying that
Everyone
the
wins.
tenants specifically, there's something that they were looking for, and then money wise it makes sense because you can fix a small leak before it's a big leak, and you just put in the time, you make the rounds, you stop a small problem from becoming a big problem, whether that's physically in your rentals or just like metaphorically in your general life relationships. And so, since it's the Marketer of the Day podcast, it's always a blast to hear about how people get the word out and also how people struggle with their business, right? Because sometimes there's a people problem, or there's a problem getting the phone ringing, or too much work that they can handle. So as far as you growing this new property management company, have there been any sort of struggles, missteps, problems?
I think the biggest issue that we've had is with the platform that we use for managing we have a property portal, right, where we have property owners that can log in and get detailed reports about their property, detailed statements, and then the tenants also log into this portal to report maybe a maintenance issue, right? And it's the fastest way that they can. There's an app for it, right? So they can go on their phone, file a maintenance request, and we get it right away. They can also pay their rent through there and all that. So getting all the dials tuned for that was a little challenging. We had it tuned with just my own portfolio of properties to begin with, and things were working great. But then as we started adding more and more users, that's when it started to get a little more complex. So we had some hills to climb, but thankfully we've gotten over those, and we've been able to grow. So as we're bringing on new properties, of course our revenue is increasing, and it's allowing us to, like, we have a full-time bookkeeper now that handles that software for us, so we don't have to deal with that side of it. We're bringing on maintenance personnel full-time. In the very beginning, it was just contracting it out anytime we needed an issue. When you have a dozen properties, you don't need a full-time maintenance person, but if you have 50 plus doors, you do, right? So these are things that we just need to make sure as we grow that we also bring on the appropriate resources, because the last thing we want to do is let a property owner down. And like I said in the beginning, we treat each property, and we don't take on any property. Like, there's some properties we'll be like, no, this doesn't meet our particular criteria, right? We look at it as an investment. Like, we are investing in your property and you're investing in us. So this is a partnership. And so we're going to treat that property like our own. We're going to make sure that it continues to perform for years to come, and that we both benefit from it, right? The property owner and ourselves. And at the same time, we also want to provide a great place for our residents to live, right? Because in our community, I'd say about 60% of everyone that we're renting to is somehow related to the military, because we're a very big military town here. And me being a veteran, um, actually our entire company is Army veterans. Like, if you look at the other agents on my team, we're all Army veterans. One guy is still in the Army, has 1 foot in, 1 foot out. But we really pride ourselves in taking care of the military community and the families that are out there.
Very cool. And you hear that a lot, right? How the military plus real estate, it's an interesting mix with the
Yes.
VA loans and moving
Oh yeah.
around a lot and the attention to detail.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, nice. And so, and what's really cool about what you're mentioning here is that sometimes it is scary to grow beyond a certain size, right? And say, oh, I don't know if I can handle it. And it's like, well, step it up. Don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. Figure out who else you need on your team to figure it out. And it might even be a good thing because, like you said, like what sucks is being in between and saying, well, I've got like these kind of freelance contractors part time. And if I got to this level, got this many doors, then I could have them full time, and that would make things a lot simpler. So there's something to be said about getting to the next plateau or the next step in the ladder, as opposed to just being afraid of growing too big. It's something to figure out. And so,
Oh,
as
it's
far
it's okay. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to
okay,
be afraid. I think that everyone's afraid, but there's a difference between being too afraid to move and just standing up even when you're afraid, and getting stuff done, right? It's like there's too many people sitting on the sidelines, and if you look at successful people, I you could probably tally 100 successful people, and they'll all say, to get to this successful level in my life, I had to take some scary steps, right? You have to.
Yeah, 100%. So it's like, is there a scenario where you can proceed despite the fear? And that's a great segue into the next thing I want to talk with you about, because I know you're big on mindset and I'm always looking to up my game, right? And in the past year, I've made sure to take a little quick nap in the middle of the day just to recharge. I've been focusing on my breathing. I'm always like, okay, how can I do better and just kind of be a calmer, nicer person who gets stuff done, takes care of myself so I can take care of others. And so I think it's been like a year or so since we last chatted. So as far as you and your outlook and your mindset, what are you working on? How have you improved?
Well, it's always about those small daily steps forward, right? That you're constantly making. Um, no one's coming to save you, right? Um, if you want success, you got to take ownership. And, I think I said this the last time we went on the podcast. One of the first things I do every single morning is I either jump in the cold plunge, right? I take an ice bath, or I take a ice cold shower for 5 minutes, right? And I put myself through this miserable, I hate it. Like, it sucks. I am getting no enjoyment out of it, but I do it anyway. I do it for that moment that I step out, because that moment that I step out, I'm like, wow, I just went through something hard, and now I'm like ready for the next hard thing, and it's not going to be as hard. And my next hard thing in my day is I go to the gym and I get a hardcore workout. I do this 5 days a week. That starts my day. Then I can dive into tenant issues, uh, just this last week, I had a furnace that I had to replace. I had a leak in the ceiling, and these are on my own personal property. So, um, I was paying for them. I'm like, damn, man. Oh my gosh, there goes my cash flow for this month. You replace a few furnaces in a month, and it eats away everything. Um, but it doesn't hurt as bad because my mind was already, you know, uh, what I put my mind through earlier in the day with that cold plunge or that ice cold shower and that workout prepared me for that next event. And that's just really taken a lot of stress off my plate, just making that a part of my daily routine.
I love that, and it almost sounds counterintuitive, right? Like this idea that you're on, you're active, you're alive, you're in beast mode, work mode, and because you're kind of like at 100%, then the stress doesn't make you have to ramp up. You're like, hey, I'm already expecting all of these things. I'm already ready to meet my challenges.
Yeah.
I love that. It's exciting and it's inspiring. And so we've been kind of jumping around here, right? We've been talking about the property management and the real estate and the mindset. And I'm always trying to be mindful of what my guest, which is you, wants to talk about, what excites them. And so in this conversation you and I are having, Mr. Keith, is there a missing, hidden, invisible question in our conversation that I should be asking you? I just don't know what to ask you.
Well, I'll tell you this, real estate really has changed my life. And I mean, you can see I started a property management company, but I created a business from real estate. But really, it started with my own investment portfolio, right? That very first house that I was scared to death to take on. We talked about it for a second that I started my real estate journey with the BRRRR method, right? Where I took a in this case, it was a fire damaged home that no one wanted because they were scared of it. I took it on. I was scared, but I figured it out and I made a lot of mistakes, but it was my jump start into real estate. I cleaned up that house, and instead of flipping it, right, for quick cash, I refinanced it and I got all of my money that I put into it back, and I threw a tenant in there. Now the tenant's paying the mortgage and I'm making a little bit of money on it. And I had all the money that I dumped into this thing back to go buy the next one. And it didn't take but 2 or 3 years for me to get to a point where I had enough money coming in every month to pay my bills. And that was my start. And then I kept just taking a bigger risk and a bigger risk and a bigger risk to kind of get to where I am today. And the saying, without risk, there's no reward. You have to be able to just take these steps. Like, again, it goes back to every successful person. they were scared to take that next step, and you just can't be like that in life. And you're going to make mistakes, right? You're going to make mistakes, but like I always tell my kids, money comes and goes, right? Don't let money be the reason why you don't do something. There will always, where there's a will, there will always be a way. If you're still breathing, you could still achieving, right? You'll still be achieving. And that's my philosophy, and that's what's gotten me where I am today. And now I'm trying to help as many other people that are out there. Maybe it's helping them with their very first investment, helping them hunt down a fixer upper to turn into a rental property, which I'll give them the tools to manage it themselves if they want, or hey, we'll manage it for you and this will be a partnership.
Very nice. Well, let's talk about that, because whenever all of these stories come up about real estate and someone like you who said, I made this move and then it went to this bigger thing and this bigger thing, it's easy to have the self doubt and the self sabotage and say, oh, I can't do it for all these reasons. And I think one thing that comes up a lot is someone saying, this is new, this is scary, I'm uncertain, I might make a mistake. And it seems like the antidote to that is to get some outside help from someone like you who says, hey, here's how I've done it. Look at your situation and say, hey, like, you're not in this alone. You have someone else on your team helping you
Yes.
figure it out.
Yeah.
And you have these different paths, these options in front of you. So if someone says, man, that sounds like me, if Keith is saying that they want to embark on this real estate journey and get your help, how do they get in touch? What should they do?
I mean, that's really what we're about. Like Alpha Zulu Realty. I mean, Alpha Zulu, Alpha and Zulu is the phonetic name for A to Z. So basically, everything from A to Z when it comes to investment real estate, we have experience doing it, and we're here to help. So it's not just about property management, it's about mentoring you and helping you every step of the way. Even if it means you're not, I mean, you can come to us and maybe you're not ready to buy something for another year. That's fine. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a cup of coffee. Myself and the agents that are in this with me, actually enjoy helping other people and watching them progress. So really, it's just about getting a hold of us. You can get to our website at www.alphazulurealty.com. You can send us an email, info@alphazulurealty.com, and we'd love to sit down with you, have a cup of coffee, talk through any real estate investment situation that you have, how to get started. There's so many creative strategies these days, and we've done them all. Like subject to financing, seller financing, VA assumptions. There's like all these creative things that most people don't even think about. And we can help strategize what makes sense for you, right? And so, best way to get in touch with us is definitely through our website, because there's phone numbers, there's email links on there, and yeah, there's four of us all together in Alpha Zulu right now, and every one of us would love to help you.
You're onto something amazing, Mr. Keith. That is alphazulurealty.com. They are an investor-focused real estate and property management in Colorado Springs. They're your turnkey partner for acquisitions, sales, and property management. And there's so much value in just being accessible and having these conversations, like how we connected like a year ago and connected again. And sometimes you say, some things lead to deals, sometimes lead to referrals, sometimes lead to friends. And even if someone makes that phone call and you have a chat, I imagine it might excite and energize you. And you might say, oh man, that just having this conversation gives me an idea for a podcast, a YouTube, a blog post, marketing email. It's always good to just eat, breathe, and sleep this stuff. And so one last question here before people go to alphazulurealty.com. You're in Colorado Springs. Is that a deal breaker? If someone's not in the area, should they still contact you?
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, I enjoy just helping people, period. I get more satisfaction out of that. People over profits at the end of the day. It's not about money. I'd love to have a conversation, because you know what? You might be able to learn something from me, and I might be able to learn something from you. I might learn something about your market that makes me go, oh man, maybe I should be investing in that market. Like, let's talk through whatever scenario you have. The door is always open.
Nice. And that's a great way to live life, right? Be a helper to others. And there's something to be said about the ripple effect and people that you help and you don't even know, right? You gave some piece of advice and they passed it along. You made a
Yeah.
podcast, someone listened to it. You never even had a interaction with that person, but you said something out there about the BRRRR method or about the VA loans, and they were like, hey, I'll run with that. And it changes the trajectory of their life. So that is info@alphazulurealty.com. And before I
Yes.
let you go here, Mr. Keith, it's time for the scary part of the show where I try to
Uh-oh.
stump you. I try to put you on the spot. And it's where I ask you for a fun quote or lesson that has served you in life or in business that you can pass on to us. So, what comes to mind for a fun quote or lesson?
Well, I'll tell you a quote that has really impacted my life ever since I first read it was this quote that was right above my first sergeant's office, like right above his desk in my first sergeant's office. He had a quote that said, um, bravery is being the only one that knows you are afraid. And at that time, I read it and it didn't really like hit, but later in life, it did. And I quickly realized that all these people that you see that are, maybe you're in a combat situation, you're like, man, these guys are like so brave. Like, I'm so scared in this situation, but these guys are stepping up to the plate. They're just as scared as you. You just don't know it, right? And so that you can apply that to life over and over again. When I got out of the army, I was scared to get out of the army because I was comfortable with the rules and regulations and just how everything was structured. And I was jumping into high tech where I didn't really know much. And I kind of like, I didn't think I was qualified enough for the job that I just got offered. But I was like, I remembered that quote and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna pretend like I'm not afraid and just try to put on that robe of confidence. And what I've found through life is when you do that, you can actually inspire others. It's a quality that's in a lot of leaders, right? Is you may think that they're just like some great person that's just so brave and so secure in themselves, but in reality, they're just like you. So once you figure that out, you can kind of get through anything. So I think, yeah, that's definitely a quote that has always stuck with me. And I think about it probably at least once a week, right? And
Yeah,
and,
that's
and as a leader, as a father, you kind of have to take on that 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 persona or that facade almost in some cases. Is like you want to make sure that the people that are looking up to you, they feel confident that, hey, you're going to get us through this, and then that gives them confidence, right? So
right.
definitely a quote that's always stuck with me.
It's powerful. That and it ties back into what we've been saying most of this conversation, that it's okay to be afraid. Just don't let it
It
stop you
is.
from doing what you need to do. And it never occurred to me that you would be afraid to leave the army, right? A lot of people are
Yeah.
afraid to go in, but then it's fear
Oh,
is
I
a
was
thing
afraid.
that
I was
exists.
I was afraid to go in too, but I didn't
Okay.
realize. I was definitely afraid, and I looked at other. I remember in basic training, even I was like I was scared, and I looked around, and I was like, and there's other people that were obviously afraid, but then others that weren't, and I'm just like, man, they're so brave, they're so tough. I want to be like that. But at the end of the day, the reality is they were all afraid. It's just some
Right.
were showing it, and some weren't.
Yeah, and you could choose to show it or not, and do your best to proceed anyway because other people are depending on you as part of your team and as a role
Yeah.
model and everywhere else. So alphazulurealty.com, whether it's finding and navigating creative finance deals, identifying strategic renovations, or knowing when to 1031 exchange into a better asset, they've done it all. They can help you do
Done
it. Keith Andrews, he's an amazing man. He's a leader in the Colorado Springs area. alphazulurealty.com. Go there, get educated, get in contact. You'll love it, and talk to Keith very soon. And thank you, Mr. Keith, for showing up and being a blast as usual and helping us out.
Absolutely. It was fun. Thank you.
All right, super nice. And thank you, Mr.